I didn't want to talk about this yesterday, Donald Trump and the Civil War comment. Let me start why I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about Donald Trump's Civil War comment because, one, everybody and their mom is going to talk about it, and they have talked about it. Everybody's, because it's easy. It's easy clicks. I probably could have got 100,000 clicks if I published this yesterday. And sometimes I just don't feel like doing what everybody else does. But then two, like how many absurd things can Donald Trump say and we respond to it? Like I get whiplash. If I would have whiplash if I responded to everything Donald Trump says that is absurd. But number three, the third reason that I didn't want to talk about it is because, actually, no, I'll stop at two. Here's why I decided to talk about it. Because when I consider, so let me, if you don't know the story, let me give you a little bit of background. So Donald Trump was asked about the Civil War in an interview, and he brought up Andrew Jackson, and he said that if Andrew Jackson had been around, you know, it's possible that the Civil War would not have happened. And he was 16 years off. Andrew Jackson died 16 years before the Civil War, and everybody's harping on the lack of knowledge of Donald Trump. I mean, I can't really get frustrated with that anymore because he's demonstrated that he's completely devoid of any substance. So it's not just the fact that he's historically wrong that as far as why I want to talk about this, but here's why I want to talk about it. He's really arguing for Andrew Jackson to be the individual in history. Had he been around, he would have been the individual in history who could have prevented the Civil War. Now, Andrew Jackson owned about 150 slaves. Andrew Jackson, for lack of a better phrase, led the Trail of Tears, instituted the Trail of Tears, killing millions of Native Americans. When Donald Trump makes a comment like this, the only thing that really stands out to me is how does he think Andrew Jackson would have avoided the Civil War? To me, that's the only thing that matters. How? By not ending slavery? Because you cannot take and venerate an individual like Andrew Jackson and actually believe for one hot damn second that he would have ended slavery or that he would have set the ball in motion to end slavery. And so for Donald Trump to say that Andrew Jackson would have helped us to avoid the Civil War, what would have been the end result is the actual thing that matters the most. This is the follow-up question that reporter should have asked. If you think Andrew Jackson was going to keep us from going to civil war, then do you think he would have ended slavery? Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, would probably have said yes. Then explain to us, Donald Trump, if yes, explain to us how a man who owned 150 slaves, a man who had no regard for African Americans or any minority at that time, the man who is I'm trying to do it without cussing, but is a stain on American history above and beyond all of the other stains on American history. How do you logically suggest that he would have ended slavery? He would have avoided the Civil War and ended slavery. He could not justify that. He could not argue that. It doesn't make sense. So to me, Donald Trump, in his mind, if you actually want to go down and follow his mind, down the rabbit hole of his mind, Donald Trump is saying that we could have avoided the Civil War with Andrew Jackson at the cost of maintaining the slave economic system. Why does that matter? Well, besides the obvious, it also matters because it shines a light on Donald Trump's willingness to allow systems, atrocities to take place for the sake of negotiating a deal. I want to put this in context of the people that he's actually talking to on the international stage now, right? Now, and before I even go down this train of thought, let me put this caveat here. Number one, America has always had relationships with dictators. America has always had relationships with murderous dictators. America has always had relationships with murderous dictators who commit the atrocious human rights violations that we see on a regular basis. So America is not flawless or clean in this story. There's not an American president that has not maintained a relationship with a murderous dictator who commits human rights violations. I want to start with that caveat up front. But Donald Trump is showing us that in his mind, it is okay for us to look at these violations and embrace these people. And I do absolutely draw this from his comment on Andrew Jackson, because how else could Andrew Jackson have avoided a civil war? You know how he would have done it? By maintaining slavery. There's nothing to fight for if we're not trying to tear down the economic system of slavery. And so likewise, when he talks about inviting Duterte to the White House, when he talks about normalizing or having a conversation with Kim Jong-un and speaking highly of him, it shows you that Donald Trump is willing to go above and beyond the baseline of what America already does. We don't have to absolve America of everything that's done before to actually see what Donald Trump is doing is problematic. It's problematic above and beyond what America has always done. America has always maintained these relationships, but now we've maintained those relationships with the simultaneous criticism of human rights violations. And yeah, I get it. America commits human rights violations. Yeah, I get it. But whenever we do things, we will simultaneously criticize the human rights violations. It doesn't change our relationship with them. We still maintain a relationship with Saudi Arabia, who commits human rights violations every single day. And we presently, through every administration, maintain that relationship. However, there is a difference when your president says, I am okay with what you're doing. I'm okay with Duterte in the Philippines carrying out a war on drugs that literally is killing thousands of people. He is authorizing and sanctioning the murder of drug addicts as well as drug dealers. And Donald Trump is saying to the international community that he's okay with that. Well, it makes sense. And it actually fits in line with this worldview that he has, that we really shouldn't argue with these people and we shouldn't have a civil war, because why did we have it in the first place? You know, Andrew Jackson could have avoided it. The subtext is he would have avoided civil war by maintaining the economic system of slavery. And Donald Trump is okay with that.